Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. We're just letting everybody in right at this time, and then we will get started in a moment. We're going to go live on our Facebook page right now, so I'm going to wait till that happens, and then we will get started. In the meantime, folks, you can turn on your language by going down to interpretation and choosing either Spanish or English. It's important for everyone to choose a language because if we have a question in Spanish, we will then be able to answer. The interpreter will be able to simultaneously give us the response in English. All right. Let me know when we're ready to go on Facebook and we'll get started, Ed.
Judy, live is operating differently than I've seen before. You're going to want to get started while I troubleshoot because this might take a minute.
Okay, great.
It's only wanting to go to my profile, which we don't want.
Yes. All right, no problem. All right, so welcome everybody to this very hastily put together virtual rally. We so appreciate you just hopping on because this is super important, what we're going to be discussing today. The first thing I want to do is a little bit of housekeeping. Everybody needs to pick a language by going down to interpretation. And now I'm going to ask Lorna Silva, our interpreter, to explain that in Spanish, please. Thank you so much. All right, so welcome everybody. We're hoping to go live on Facebook at some point, but we're having a little bit of logistical stuff going on there. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. My name is Judy Mark. I'm the president of Disability Voices United. I am also the parent of a 24-year-old son who's served at a regional center in the Los Angeles area and who is quite self-determined. Many of you who are joining us today know us as the Self-Determination Group, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that we care about. And today we're going to be talking about a lot of those things, and many of them will relate to self-determination. We have gathered with us some of the most important advocates in the state. Well, I'm going to say they are the most important advocates in the state. Many of whom have been working for decades on your behalf. If you've never met them before, I'm excited for you to meet them. We're going to be talking to you today about something that if you were on our SDP Connect yesterday, you heard a lot about it. I spent a whole hour going through it, but we're going to get into a little more detail and hear about why it's so important. So let me just start by telling everybody that that the federal government and the Congress and President Biden have passed a budget bill to provide funding to the state, to all 50 states who want it, to help people who are in home and community-based services. Now, let me explain that. First of all, the legislation was called the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. We're trying not to use the ARPA term because it sounds like ARCA, and in our world, that's the regional center agencies, and we don't want to get too confused. But the rescue plan funds will come into California and will be able to provide home and community-based services, which are basically regional center services and other services for other communities, such as the aging community, people suffering from homelessness, or people who are people with mental health disabilities. There's a lot of people who receive these home and community-based services. Today, we're talking primarily about the developmental disability community. And each state gets to create a plan that they call the spending plan, not to be confused with the spending plan of the self-determination program, but the spending plan for how they want to spend the money. The Department of Developmental Services last week presented their ideas for the spending plan. And for the groups that you're seeing gathered here today, it includes some of the most important things that we have been fighting for years. We believe at Disability Voices United that the spending plan, if enacted the way it's proposed, is a game changer for our system. It will seek to bring about equity and accountability, transparency, and most importantly, better outcomes for us. And we are so excited about these possibilities, almost a once in a lifetime possibility. So we wanted to go over some of it with you and really encourage you to get involved in making sure that this plays out in the way that we hope it will. Each of our speakers today are going to be focusing on a little bit on different parts of the plan. We are not going over all of the plan, but what we'll do is we'll put in the chat the link to the plan in its entirety so that you can see it. You can see the whole spending plan and be able to go over it in the language that the state government has provided. I'm just going to start with going over some of the accountability and transparency features, which are pretty stunning. One of the things that we really are excited about is that it's going to create a systems change that will be able to give information to people with disabilities and their family members at any time that they want. It is going to seek to create what's called a forward-facing system. So maybe some of you belong to Kaiser, or you belong to a hospital group where you can get all of your medical records at any time on sort of a website portal or on a phone app. I know that I have that with my doctors, and I'm able to see my test results at any time. I'm able to compare them over years. I'm able to see the notes that the doctors write about me. I'm able to ask for an appointment, ask for prescription refills. Well, we're talking about doing that with people with developmental disabilities, that we will be able to see the reports written about us by service providers and their billings. We will be able to see what regional centers are saying about us and all of our IPPs over the years. We'll be able to ask for appointments, send emails through a confidential system that will track all of those emails. It will be about us. It will be about us, and it will be very transparent. And we're very excited about that possibility. There are other features of the plan that relate to accountability and transparency as well, including creating a new billing system. I mean, the computer system that we have was developed in 1984 and still uses the DOS program, for those of you old enough to remember that, and I am that old. So it will upgrade it so that the billing system is better for service providers. People will hopefully get paid in a more timely fashion. And it will be integrated into this forward-facing system that we are talking about, and that we will be able to see that providers are really billing for the hours that they're actually providing service. The other feature that I wanted to talk about in the American Rescue Plan is that, or the spending plan for it, is that it will be providing funds for what they're calling community integration for children and teens, particularly around social and recreational programs. We are very excited about this because what we know, all of us parents know, is that when we have small children, it's very hard to integrate them into typical programs like your Parks and Rec, your YMCA, your Girl Scouts, your Boy Scouts, summer camps. It's very, very problematic to have that integration without a full commitment from those community programs. And what the funding will do is it will provide grants to community-based programs, like maybe at a parks program, they will need to put in sort of a changing room for an older child who maybe is still in diapers and needs a larger changing area. You know, perhaps it's providing funding for a Hoyer lift to go into a swimming pool so that people with physical disabilities can participate in a swim program. It might be training for your local Girl Scout troop leader to have them understand what it means to include girls with autism or cerebral palsy. So it has tremendous potential to ensure that our kids are truly included in the community. And we're really excited if that combines with the restoration of the funding for social and recreational services in the budget bill, then we think that we have a really promising future in the community for all of those folks who really want to be living in it, because this is the future here. This is all about inclusion as well, this plan. I'm now going to turn to the next person who's going to present some other pieces. I want to present Marty Emoto. He leads fearlessly the CDCAN, the California Community Disability Action Network, and is, a long time advocate. He is one of the first people I met when I started getting involved. And he puts out this amazing newsletter about everything that goes on, and you should definitely get on his email list. And he's also a family member and actually a caregiver of someone right now. So thank you, Marty. Go ahead.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for everyone being on, especially at the last moment. My name is Marty Emoto. I'm a family member. I'm also founder, executive director, California Disability Senior Community Action Network. The family member part is the reason I became an advocate, first as a family advocate way back almost 50 years ago. And I worked in the system back in the 1970s as a direct care worker here in Sacramento. And again, as a family member, I became a statewide advocate well over 25 years ago. 20 years ago, and Jackie Dillard and some other people on this Zoom meeting will remember when we had to protest and bring people to the budget hearings to fight against cuts back in 2001, 2002, 2003, even the suspension of the Lanterman Act. One of the things that we did was we told people to bring pictures of the people who are their family members, or pictures of the people they care about, or the people that they supported. And why did we do that? Was because policymakers and other advocates thought that the system was a building. And we had to remind them that the Lanterman Act is a civil right to people, that it was about my sister. It was about Alex. It was about the individuals who provide services. We had to remind people of that. And for the first time in the state's history, we brought people into the budget hearings, flooded it with thousands of people back in 2001, 2002, 2003, and onward. And now that's a common thing. But we had to remind people, policymakers, that the regional center system, the IHSS system, is about people. Way back when the Lanterman Act was first put forward, there were families, parents who said to legislators that we are here to speak for justice. Back then, people didn't realize that that was an historic, transforming moment. Many years, 45 years now, fast forward, today, we're here to remind you that we're at a moment like that again. This is a transforming moment. We have basically Lanterman Act Part 2 that never actually happened. The other pieces of the Lanterman Act that never happened. And the piece about what Judy was talking about, the American Recovery Act, the spending plan that the state of California has put forward, the Newsom administration, is the first time in my career as an advocate, that I've ever seen a document that looks upon people, the whole person, for the first time across all the systems. It looks at Alex, the person who lives with me, who has Down syndrome. It looks at his entire life and all the things that he needs across all the systems. I have never seen before, I think all of us as advocates have never seen the state of California think that way before and put forward a plan of action. And that's why it needs to happen, because, and the piece that I will cover is, in that plan are several proposals that are based on the person, the whole person, that it is tied to outcomes based on the person's person-centered planning. and it provides incentives when a person's outcomes are actually achieved. We have never had that in the system. Remember, just 20 years ago, we had to bring pictures to remind policymakers, legislators, and the state that this was about my sister, this was about Alex, that it was about your son or daughter or brother. We had to remind them. What the person-centered planning process and tying that to outcomes that in turn provides incentives for workers and for providers is that it should not be a reminder that we have to do during budget hearings. It should be the way things are. It is the piece of the Lanterman Act that never was enacted. And so I want to close because we don't have a lot of time. This is the moment. Back 50 years ago, when the Lanterman Act and those families were there by themselves, there was no social media or anything. No one realized what an historic, transforming moment that was for those families. They simply wanted help to their children or for themselves. We are at that moment today. And we are here to say to all of you, this is the moment that we need to speak up like those families did 50 years ago. We are here to speak for justice. This isn't about speaking up for a system. This is about speaking up for my sister or for Alex or for your brother or sister. And we need to do that. It is person-centered. These proposals issued by the state last week, the Home and Community-Based Spending Plan, or sometimes referred to as American Recovery Act spending plan. You need to look at it. It's 29 pages. It's the first time that it looks at your entire life, regardless of the system. And that is something we need to tell the state of California. You need to do this. You need to do this. And so I will close with that. Thank you. And we need to seize the moment today. We're here to speak for justice, all right? And we need to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. That felt like a rally. That really did, Marty. Speak for justice. I'm like going like this, like I'm at a rally where I can't hear the crowd screaming, but I'm imagining it.
Yeah, Jackie, to do those together.
I'd now like to introduce Vivian Hahn. Some of you may already know Vivian Hahn because she's been on some of our stuff. Vivian Hahn is a senior attorney in the intellectual and developmental disabilities practice at Disability Rights California and is a sibling as well, just like Marty. And thank you, Vivian.
Thanks so much, Judy. I'm really pleased that all of you could be here with us today. There are just so many, I think, exciting things in the HCBS spending plan. There's so much potential to finally address some of the inequities that so many of our individuals and families have been facing, particularly those who have been perpetually underserved and have never been able to fully access the services and supports that have been available to others. I'd like to start by looking at a few services. One of the things that the HCBS spending plan would do would be to, I think, create a new service. It's not a brand new service. It's really more like an additional version of something that has been available, but it's taking it and making it available to a lot more people. Some of you may be familiar with SLS, Supported Living Services. It's a critical piece of our system, right? It allows people the opportunity to live independently in their own homes, to be in charge of their lives, to be empowered. Yes, thank you, Lourdes. We should all be applauding. And there are many wonderful folks on this call, like Jackie Dillard-Foss and many other providers who have been our partners in supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to lead the lives that they want, to live where they want to live, and do the things that are meaningful for them where they want to do it. That's what the best SLS providers can do. One of the limitations, though, to SLS is that by statute, SLS has been available only to people who live in their own residences, which means that SLS has not been available thus far to individuals who continue to live at home with family members, either with their parents or perhaps with a conservator. SLS has not been available to people in that living arrangement. One of the things that DRC has been working on for a few years now is trying to expand the availability of this really wonderful and life-changing service to people who, the many people who for various reasons are either choosing to live with their parents or with family members, or who have to because of the economy, because of COVID, or because they are just choosing to, you know, because it's just important to them, whether it's personally important or it's part of their culture. We thought it was so important to have SLS-like supports available to people in those living arrangements as well. So after working with some wonderful people at CCLN and getting their input and pushing it through, we were so thrilled to see DDS include in this spending plan a proposal for $125 million to pilot this new service. So if you're an individual and you haven't moved out yet to live on your own, either because you don't want to, you're not ready, or you just haven't been able to find or afford a place of your own, with this service, you would be able to have SLS-like supports to you in your home that you share with your family members. So we're very excited about that. It's very new. There are kinks to be worked out, right? But if this goes through, I think it would be a tremendous game changer for so many people who are continuing to live at home with their parents. It will make their lives so much better and more empowered, and it will be such a support and a relief, I think, to so many parent caregivers, especially aging parent caregivers who themselves need support or will need more and more support for the role that they play in their adult children's lives as they get older. So that's just one, right? That's just one of the first exciting things to highlight. One of the other things that I'm talking about today is something that blew my mind when I saw it at the tail end of this very long HCBS spending plan document, right? Which had a long list of all these different proposals. And I feel like they saved the best for last because they talked about establishing an ombudsperson office. And one of the things, if you're a member of DVU, you may have heard that DVU and DRC have been working on a bill all year long to create an ombudsperson office that would be looking at the self-determination program and ideally provide a safe space for people to surface their concerns, their issues, talk about barriers, and to try to go to the ombudsperson to see if that person could help address some of the system-wide issues leading to those barriers. And then to make some recommendations for system-wide change, right? But initially we were only thinking about self-determination. And to our surprise and our delight, when the HCBS spending plan came out, DDS took it a step further. In a good way, they proposed establishing an ombudsperson office that would be over the entire system, over all of DDS, not just self-determination. This would be someone who would be sort of like a neutral, independent party that people could go to with their problems with the regional center system. This person would collect all the information, keep it confidential so that you wouldn't have to be afraid about reporting anything, and then would assemble all this information and would work within the system to try to get some of those system-wide barriers addressed and fixed. And we were so excited to see that. I don't think we had expected that would come out. Because it felt like, you know, finally they were seeing the need and they were finally listening to the needs of people like you and other individuals with disabilities and family members who've been asking for that type of oversight for a very long time. Lastly, one of the things that really, really blew my mind was what DDS said about the fair hearing system. At the end of this plan, they said that they wanted to devote millions of dollars to transforming the fair hearing system. They talked a lot about what our friend Fernando Gomez and Elizabeth Gomez and so many others have been saying for years about how disempowering the fair hearing system is. They have often said it feels to them like an unfair hearing system where they have felt intimidated, disrespected, like they don't have support, like the system is stacked against families and individuals who can't afford an attorney and don't necessarily have the resources to know how to navigate through that system. For DDS to come out and say, we hear you, and we think you're right. We think there needs to be an overhaul of how this entire fair hearing system works. And we're finally ready to do something about it and to pour millions of dollars towards it. To me, that was huge. There weren't details. And of course, we would want the details here, right? Those are important. But the fact that DDS even came to the table and is finally saying these things and acknowledging our concerns is such a huge and hopeful step. And we're so excited for that to even be on the table. If it goes through, we would absolutely want to work with all of you. We think it's critical and essential for self-advocates, especially, to be leading that charge. We wouldn't want DDS to be leading that process as usual and to just be getting like input from you or input from family members. That's just not going to cut it. For something this transformative, we really think it should be a process that is led and driven by people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Absolutely. And it should be DDS's turn to listen to us as to how the system should really work. There's so much potential here and it's so exciting. And there's so much to be worked out. I just wanted to preview all of this for you and to hopefully let you know how much potential there is, right? The future that can be on the horizon for us if we let the state know, if we let the administration, and especially if we let the legislature know how critical this vision is to us. It's so close. I don't know if they know how much we want this and how important this is to our community. Let them know. Let them know. And we'll work together to make it happen if we can do that. So thank you for your time today. And thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Vivian. It was great. I'd now like to introduce Jackie Dillard Foss. Jackie is the executive director of the STEP Agency, which is a really wonderful supported living agency in the Sacramento and surrounding areas, but it is also a leader of the California Community Living Network, which is a statewide organization of community living providers, such as supported living, independent living, and other kinds of supports. And we are so excited to have you here. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. For some people, I'm tall, 6'1", and for Marty Emoto, I'm big. So that was part of the rally that Marty would like to tell you, follow the big lady. So I would just like to remind Marty for the rest of my life that he called me big and not tall. So hi, I'm the tall lady, Jackie Foss. Anyway, I just think when I was on the calls with the DDS task force, one is this year is so, you're coming out of this pandemic and I don't know that we've ever seen money, right? And so you're looking at this American Rescue Act plan and the ability of those resources to come into our community. And then you also have a budget surplus. I think our brains can't wrap around, because we're usually fighting about cuts, no more cuts. I mean, I don't know how many stop the cuts. And it really is. And then you have to take a step back and say, whatever we do as a system, if what we do does not benefit directly families and those with disabilities, then we've lost our way. So money can come into the system, but we have to make that commitment. So there's a couple of parts of the American Rescue Act plan that I found really exciting, especially with around supported living and independent living services, was the housing proposal, the $100 million for the set-asides and $50 million for rental assistance, because you cannot get into supported living if you don't have housing. Independent living, that's number one thing that people struggle with, is the housing. So that was a really exciting part of, because there's so many housing proposals. There's $12 billion the governor put in for housing issues, but nothing that ever targets folks with developmental disabilities. So that for the California Community Living Network was huge. The other thing is, we all know coming out of this, re-engaging in the community and coming out of this pandemic, we're all dealing with a pretty significant workforce crisis. And so seeing in that there was a $500 retainment bonus to really recognize those direct support professionals that continue to work throughout this pandemic. And then to try to assist us was a recruitment bonus. Now, do I think that's going to fix the longer term issue with wages? I don't. Do I think it's going to recognize the employees and maybe help us with recruitment? I do. I think the other part of, and I talk really fast, and so if you don't know me, I can sign really fast as well as talk really fast.
Well, it's hard, Jackie, just quickly for the interpreter if you
I
talk
know,
real
and I
fast.
work
So
with, my
I'm
sister.
terrible. Yeah.
My deaf sister keeps up with me pretty good, so I can sign at the same time if I needed to. I will talk a little slower. Is the training, there's dollars in there for training. I think we as a system, we do a lot of, if we put money in for training and professionalizing this workforce, if it does not lead to better outcomes for individuals with developmental disabilities and their families, then the training will not have served its purpose. I really strongly believe that anything we do, we have to take a step back and always say, are we going to achieve better outcomes for individuals? We have to make sure the housing proposal, I can see the better outcome is housing, right? And I look at that and I'm going, if I can get the workforce in the door, if I cannot figure out how to, one, pay them a competitive wage, and two, make sure they receive the training to lead to better outcomes, that's going to continually be the struggle. So in the American Rescue Act plan, I see the money there. I see is for families, for you to hold us accountable as providers to make sure that when the resources come through, that we are making sure we are meeting your needs and the individual's needs. That's going to be really critically important as well. So I'm excited to see. I'm skeptical because I'm just born that way. I'm just skeptical because I'm like, all this money is coming. Is it going to go to where it needs to go? And will it have the long-term benefits that it needs to have? That's my hope, is that we get to a place where we have a community of inclusiveness, that people are living their way, their chosen ways of life, that they're achieving the outcomes they want. I am really excited. Vivian did talk a lot to the California Community Living Network, the family support services. CCLN is so very excited to see family support services, that the families and in their home can receive the supports that they need, because supported living was not an option. So I was really excited to see that proposal as well. So there's a lot of really good parts, but it's going to take, as I learned from Marty Emoto from 20 something years ago, as I age myself, it will take all hands on deck to make it happen. All these good things are just on pieces of paper right now. There is no signature on anything. So all the people I see on this call, all the people it will take all of us coming together. And we may not be able to do it like we usually do it, but we can do it by phone calling, and we can do it by letting people hear our voice. We are a strong voice, so it'll take all hands on deck to make these things happen, and for the good things in the American Rescue Act plan to stay where they need to stay, so the families and the individuals receive these services and supports that they deserve, and that we as a community come behind you and support you on the journey for your inclusive and independent lives. So thank you so much for giving me a time, Judy. I appreciate it. Tall lady signing off.
Thank you for everything, Jackie. Tall is good. I think tall is awesome. I'd now like to introduce Fernando Gomez, who is the founder of the Integrated Community Collaborative, and also a dad. We love our family members. Go ahead, Fernando.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Judy. It's a pleasure to be here. And before I start, I just want to say to Jackie, I'm surprised that you are 6'1". In reality, I thought you were 7'4". You stand tall. You're very passionate, and the heart that you have for a community is just a blessing. So I thought you were 7'4". But Judy, as she introduced me, I am a co-founder actually of the Integrated Community Collaborative, and as well as Disability Voices United. And we like to say that we're sister organizations, but let me explain why. I'm a dad. I have a 14-year-old son with Down syndrome. I also have a 12-year-old son who just graduated today from elementary. And years ago, when we first started our journey into advocating, it was interesting. It was a learning experience at first, and then it became an eye-opening experience, and not necessarily in the good way. As we were advocating, my wife and I, Elizabeth, who many of you know, as we were advocating, especially at the state level, we were hearing all kinds of statistics and data that were used that represented who we were as a community. And as a father, as a Latino, and as a parent, I wasn't able to really relate to a lot of this data and information. And I knew that we had a huge problem. And we were very blessed to see an organization like Disability Voices United introduced. When we sat and we were thinking about the idea and the concept, and many of the people who are here in this meeting today who were part of that, we wanted an organization that was by individuals who are not only family members, but also self-advocates. And our advocating was for what? For choice and control, for equity and accountability, and for meaningful outcomes. 3 key areas that are being discussed today. And Marty, I appreciate you saying that this is the battle cry. This is the bell ringing saying, come one, come all. This is the time to stand up and exercise your rights, exercise your voice. And as I look at the people that are participating in this in this Zoom call that came in within the last couple of hours, I just get goosebumps because I just see how diverse we are, how we come from different parts of the state, but we come together. And that voice has to be united today. Tomorrow may be too late. Right now, it's unprecedented what's happening. But I got to tell you, there are people out there, there are organizations out there that are coming in sheep's clothing saying, we know what's best for this community. We know what they want. We represent this community and may not have the best interests in mind for us. It is time for us to take action. If not us, who? If not now, when? This is the time, Marty. You're right. It is the Latterman Act Part 2. And it's just an amazing time. The Integrated Community Collaborative took what DVU was set up to do at the state level to say, we're going to go into the community. We're going to meet with families, individuals on a peer-to-peer basis, and we're going to hold hands and we're going to help navigate the system from that perspective. We introduced a protocol called the Integradora, the integrators. I see a lot of integradoras on the Zoom meeting today. And these are leaders, just like many of you. And I see others who are not part of the ICC, but you're also leaders. And this is the time to come together and say, this is our voice, this is our need, this is about equity and accountability. And right now, we can see that finish line. My peers have been sharing with you a lot of the key things that are in this proposal. And we see the finish line, but we haven't crossed it yet. We're within hours of crossing that line, but we have to stay focused. And I know, Judy, I'm sure you'll share with what the action items are. But let me share with you 3 things that are in this proposal. The first thing is on community navigators, and the second, which parallel to it, implicit bias training. The community navigators is an outreach program that's designed to go from within the regional center out into the community. With the general funds, the budgeted funds, there was 21 positions that were designed to go across the state, 1 in each regional center. Because of this additional funding, it's now added to an additional 42. That brings a total of 63 new navigators coming into doing community outreach. Now, the dynamic here is that it's a great program and it's a great opportunity to engage community, but it's also the opportunity for the community to engage with the navigators and to go back into the regional center system or the other systems of support. So I'm really excited about this program because what it does, it brings dialogue, it brings conversation, it brings a seat around the table where we're able to share and communicate and drill down into specifics that once addressed systemically, then the whole mountain moves and everybody will move forward. The implicit bias training is super important. There is a lot of training that's been going on. There's trainings that are available. And as a parent, sometimes I think I get training overload because of so much information that's out there. But the ability to take that information, once it's learned, once it's communicated, and say, I have access to it, and I can take that into an actionable item so that I can better advocate for my son. And for those of you who are self-advocates, who are able to navigate a very complex and very, I guess, over-the-top system is just a simple way to put it. So the ability to come in and provide this training and have the accountability around the training is going to be centered around this implicit bias training. So you have a lot of training, you have a lot of resources that are going into the community outreach, but then what happens? Well, this is the third item. It's what they call a home and community-based service navigation. It's a portal. I've heard it described in different ways, but one of my favorite descriptions, it's a marketplace, un mercado, a place where we as a community can come in and be able to access information, access resources, bring clarification. You know, a lot of people say the regional center system has a lot of services it offers, but I've yet to sit in that restaurant and look at the menu. But they just tell me what the deal of the day is, and they expect that I'm good with that. When in reality, this mercado, this portal will be able to break all that down and explain it to you in a way that we understand it, because it's designed for us. It's a portal for the whole community, but it's going to come from the perspective of the individuals who are using it, the families who have the need for it. So those are the three key areas. The only thing I can also, and I know we're limited in time, but the only thing I can ask you again, look around, look at who's here with you. This is who we are. This is our community. And please, if you do anything, make sure that you use your voice, use the ability today to come back and request for what's on the table today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fernando. That was great. I really wish that we could have this crowd room going, woo, because that would really be so helpful. Our final speaker, and then we're going to take your questions because we know there's a few of you with questions, is Erin Carruthers. Erin is the Executive Director of the California State Council on Developmental Disabilities. Erin, you should be able to unmute and go ahead and speak. Thanks, Erin.
Great, thanks, Judy. And thank you to everybody for being here on short notice, quick notice. When a call goes out to action, you mobilize, you are here. Thank you so much for it. I know people have said already that this is a once in a lifetime opportunity that we have. It's hard, and you've heard that before. We really mean it this time. Like there is just somehow like, think back to a year ago and what our lives were like. We weren't leaving the houses. We were so afraid of what this virus was going to do to us, do to our family, do to our loved ones. We thought the budget was going to be wiped out. We thought there's no jobs, there's no funding, and whoosh, it comes back. And the state has an amazing outlook on the budget. The federal dollars coming in from the president and the Congress are adding to even more of that. And it's just sort of stacking on to create this, what's the opposite of a perfect storm? It's like the perfect, I don't know, non-storm, but it's a perfect storm of opportunity. So this really does feel like a once in a lifetime opportunity to do some things in the system to meaningfully, deeply transform it. And there's two ways that when the state council goes out and asks the community, you know, what do you want us working on? What do you want us to work on? I'll tell you, number one answer is employment. Number two answer is housing. People just want lives. Like I want a job. I want meaningful work, and I want a nice place to live. Like same dream as anybody else. And you know that the system has failed to figure out how to deliver that is a failure on the system. And in this proposal is two pieces that really put some meaningful dollars behind that. One, the state council put out the statewide strategic housing framework to say, governor, legislature, here you got to invest in housing for people with developmental disabilities. Here's why. 70% of adults are living at home with aging caregivers. There's certainly want to live together. There's others who want to live on their own, but there's no capacity, there's no supply for people who want to live on their own. So we've been pushing for dollars, and here comes a proposal as part of this bigger proposal. $150 million in there for housing, 100 to build some new housing, 50 million for rent supports. People, they need rent supports. Good, you get us in housing, but if we can't afford the rent, what good is it? So rent supports and building additional capacity and additional supply. This is critical. Next piece, as it relates to employment, people want jobs, people want meaningful contribution, meaningful work. Part of that means ending the state's current practice of paying people sub-minimum wage, putting people in sheltered workshops, putting people in work activity programs, and paying people as little as $2 an hour. If the state is going to be a leader, it needs to look at and reconcile where it's enacting abuses upon people, where the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights in September pointed out sheltered workshops as a place of civil rights violations. California needs to be a leader in civil rights, needs to be a leader in this movement, needs to be a leader in employment. It's time to end this practice. And this proposal provides money to provide the pathways for people out of sheltered workshops and into meaningful, competitive, integrated employment. So I know you've had a lot of speakers. I know you're anxious to talk, to ask questions, to get more information. So I just want to pop in really quickly and just say there's two big pieces in here that are the top priorities. When we ask people, our last survey was 6,500 people, what's your number one priority? Employment and housing, it's in there. We're excited. Thanks, Judy.
Thank you so much, Aaron. So that was like a very fast overview, and we want to be able to take some quick, take a few questions, and then we'll move to sort of what you can do about it in the last few minutes. So Sean Costello, why don't you get started?
Hello, everybody. I wanted to give you the disabled view of everything, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is what it was with me the last 60 years that I've been alive. I have been fought with prejudice my entire life of one thing or another, whether it's teachers picking on students with disabilities. I had a bad teacher when I was in the 11th grade. I was walking with my braces, and the kids were saying, "Oh, you look wonderful! You look wonderful out of your wheelchair." And the teacher comes out to you, "Get back to class!" Telling me all bad stuff. Get back to class. And and it takes me an hour and a half to talk to all these people and give me all these great things. And then the teacher yells at me. It takes me 5 minutes to go back to where I was at, get the wheelchair, get back to class. And she picked on me the entire year. The worst teacher I have ever had in my entire life. And that's where I wanted, that's what I decided to do is the fight for the little people. So when I came to Granada High School in Livermore, I started lecturing for years and years and years and years and years. And I would say, people with disabilities are here to stay. And we're here to say, hey, we will not go away quietly. We will fight for each and every job that we get. Me, I have applied literally each and every job in Dublin, California for the last 30 years, and only one person or two people gave me jobs, and that's McDonald's, and that is Chuck E. Cheese. And I've been at Chuck E. Cheese almost 20 years, and I still only get 2 hours a week. Can you believe that? That is outrageous. You know, it is things like this that gets me going. This is why I keep running for office, so that I can show all the other little people. I am a little people too, but other people, that they can run for office too. And they can feel that they have importance, and that they feel that they can say, "Yes, Mom, I have a right to say something, Mom," or anything, you know. Judy, you look fabulous. Even with your disabled kid, you have a abundance of energy, just like I do. And so when I say, let me be a part of this, let me be one of your speakers, this is what I want to talk about. This is what I want to say. Hey, people, I was the very first person at Chabot College to be a tutor in a wheelchair. I was the very first person to be a disc jockey on the radio at Chabot College. The very first. I was the very first person to ever run for office in the whole state of California. The first one. In 1984, I tried it. And I got rejected because they said they did not want me to run. So they said that no one's registered to vote on my paper. They threw it out. I go in 86. I tried to run in 86. And what do? They go, you missed it by a day. Ah, shoot. So
Ah,
in 1988 until now, I've been on the ballot. I've been on the ballot ever since. And it's going to be my 17th election next year. And I am doing this not for myself, but for you guys.
thank you, Sean. You're amazing. And you probably know a bunch of politicians and elected officials. And we're going to get, as soon as we take a couple more questions, I'm going to get to everybody how you can influence and make and absolutely make Sean's dreams and visions come true. I'm now going to call on Maria. Go ahead, Maria. Do you have a question?
You know what? It's it's amazing that I am able to be here. We need every voice. I has been really engaging in a lot of contact with the people with disability, and like I am a person with disability myself on my left arm. I has been able, to work through the Department of Rehabilitation to figure it out. So I has been able to do something, for myself from the point of view. But the point here is that we need to really scream louder. You know what I mean? Because there is so many things that are not happening, that are not right. I have been sitting in many meetings with the regional centers in regard to the major, bunch of money that came from DDS and all those transformations. And I don't see that there is anything related to how they're going to increase, the possibilities for the people with disability to have a better services. You know what I mean? Where they can control their budget, where they can really decide. There is a lot of restraining in that regard, and that should not be, especially with self-determination coming now, that we need to impact that in any way, because people are afraid. People are afraid that they're going to spend time fighting the system to get something that is rightful for them. And the other part that I really want to come out with my voice is language. Language is equal to development. Language is equal to education. If we, Judy, can come out with a bill, I am pretty sure that there is a lot of congressman, representative, and the congressman here in Irvine, they said that they will support that. Language is equal to really empowerment. If we can come out with a bill for language, where they can teach language at least 4 hours a week minimum to our kids, it will be fantastic. I just
Thank
want
you.
to really bring
Thank
that
you, Maria. That was so great. That was super helpful. Alfredo, you are next.
Hello, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk, and I appreciate all the work you guys doing, because really for me, it's our community is pushing on the side. We're a second class communities. And I think we have to change that. The only way is the way you guys doing this and the way we are working outside on the field, because our community doesn't have the information I know. They just to say something. I know a lot of things that the other groups and organizations, but not everybody got in all the connects that I have and the other people have. And I think it's time for us to start pushing the institutions who get the chance to make the changes in our communities. And this point is the organization or institution who has the money, who bring the money to the communities, or the institutions like regional centers. It doesn't matter what we do if the regional centers receive all that money and they don't give services, because our community are fighting for those services they deserve, because the regional centers receive the money exactly for that reason. And then parents go to the regional center to meetings. They don't have representation. They don't have the attorneys they bring. We go and we find 10 people in front of us against us, using the information we give them. And they take everything on their side. So I just want to say that if we don't go to the communities and we start spreading the voice any way we can, the tools we have, that is not much, but we have one that is very powerful, the media. That's the only way we can get close to our community. But we have to start thinking that we have to start talking to the people straight, looking on the eyes of them and tell them, you got the power. You can make the change. If we don't do that, it doesn't matter how many meetings we had, it's gonna be the same. We just come him to complain, we're gonna have him to planning, we're gonna have him to talking. But you know what? I appreciate the people who talked before me, and I appreciate the guy that he named it the little guy. He is one of the big guys. This is the people we need. The people who is suffering. The people is getting this disability. It's a disabled person. It's me. I got disabled from my neck, my lower back, my knee, my shoulder. But you know, let's do something. Let's start going to the communities and let them know what you guys doing, what other organizations is doing, and let's make the change. We have to change this. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfredo. That was definitely a rally type speech. That was amazing.
Judy, can I add on that? I wanted to expand a little bit on what Don Alfredo was sharing. And we appreciate you, Alfredo. For many years, you've not only been an advocate, but you've been an activist. And the passion and what you shared is not just represented on your lived experience. There is much data and research that shows what you're saying is actually true, that we know that if you're a person of color, you're an ethnic family in this system, that there are substandard and there are lack of access to these services. And I appreciated what Sean was saying, because as hard and as challenging, as difficult as life as Sean has had, and God bless him for pushing through and working harder to set the standards that he's been doing. We know, even after coming out of a pandemic for the last year and all the challenges that we all as a community have had to endure, that there are some members of our community who have made it even more challenging and even harder. So thank you for sharing that. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Fernando. I'm just going to take a moment to make sure it's okay with Lorna. We might run about 10 minutes late. I told her we finish on time, and now it looks like we probably won't because there's a bunch of extra questions. But Lorna, our interpreter, does have to go at the latest 3:15. So one of the things I want to take a moment to do before taking more questions is that that we are gonna. I want to be able to tell you what you can do about this. This is critically important. Several times in the chat, you have seen, in fact, one more time, Ed's putting it back in there, is a link to an email that we sent out earlier today. Many of you are probably already on our mailing list, but in that email, it has the links to all the legislators that we need to reach out to. It only takes 2 minutes for you to send an email to them through their portal or to call their office and say, please tell the senator that we are in favor of the American Rescue Plan Act spending plan. That's really all you have to say. And that, don't spend the money on anything else. Spend it on the American Rescue Plan Act. They don't have time to talk to you for very long. They're not going to ask you details. You don't need to be an expert. You should definitely just Say that and get off and go to the next caller. I plan on spending the rest of my afternoon making those phone calls. The other thing that I'm going to say is if you live in their district, you are even more important. So if you look at who it is that we're talking about here today, I'm going to go to my list. We are talking about really just about 7 people. We are talking about Senate President Tony Atkins, who is in the San Diego area. So Joyce Clark, I'm looking at you. We are talking about Nancy Skinner in Berkeley. I don't know if you're in that district, Nina, but I'm looking at you. Susan Talamantes Eggman in Stockton. I'm looking at you, Dora. Anthony Rendon is in Southgate Paramount. There's a whole lot of people on this call from that area, for sure, from his district. Budget Chair Philip Ting in San Francisco. Looking at Sasha Bittner. Joaquina Rambala in Fresno, Carolyn Talalian, he's yours. And then Governor Gavin Newsom, and he's all of ours. So if you are a constituent of any of those people, you should tell them that when you call. It doesn't mean that you can't call if you're not a constituent. I personally am not for any of these folks, but I plan on calling them all. But if I were Dora Contreras, I would be calling Senator Eggman's office and saying to her, I am your constituent, Senator Eggman. I ask for you to do what is right for your constituents, and this is important to me and my grandson. So, or your child or your loved one, or people you serve. So that if you go to that list, you will be able to see it. Nina said she wrote to her senator and it took her 2 minutes. So thank you so much. I'm now going to go over to Ryan Duncanwood and go ahead and ask your question. You can unmute, Ryan. I did see one of, here's it. I see it in the chat. Thank you, Ryan. It's perfect. So Ryan said in the chat, what about social rec for adults? That is so interesting you said that, because that is exactly the position that Disability Voices United had when we saw the development of these programs for children and adolescents. And I can tell you, my son is 24 and he desperately needs to be integrated into the social and recreational programs that exist in the general community. Whether it's local hiking clubs or local, Disney clubs or whatever exists on the things that my son happens to be interested in. But there's lots of activities that exist out there. There's even adult camps, and there's and there's things in religious communities. So we are really pressing hard that position also be expanded to adults. And I think we have a very good chance of that. Somebody's asking in the chat, can family members also make a call? Everybody can make a call. If you live in California, you can make a call. So have the grandparents call, have the neighbors call, have your coworkers call. Everybody should be making calls. Thank you, Ryan. I heard from Ed that there's a few questions that she has been given. Go ahead, Ed.
Yes, please allow me a moment. I was typing something in the chat. Please allow me to scroll back up in the chat. I have a question from Sherry, which I think is a marvelous question. What can the community do to ensure that funding is provided to community-based organizations? Some families do not trust the family resource centers and would rather seek help from community-based organizations.
I'm going to ask Fernando. I know you've got your son behind you who's about to graduate from middle school, but did you hear that question, Fernando?
I heard part of it as the last part. Can you repeat the first part, please?
Certainly. What can the community do to ensure that funding is provided to community-based organizations? Some families do not trust the family resource centers, and they would rather seek help from community-based organizations.
Yeah, it's a great question. it's a discussion that's been brought up several times already in regards to engagement. And my personal opinion is that it takes a whole pueblo, it takes the whole village, and it takes everybody working together. The family resource centers are extremely valuable. They bring in a tremendous amount of effort and opportunities and engagement with the community. And that's important. But I do like the question because it's also very relevant that it shouldn't just be one size fits all. It has to be a combination of. So community-based organizations, parent groups, individual leaders in the communities are, I think, they play such an important role, and the wealth of information and the intuition that they bring to the table is invaluable, and it's needed. So, and here's my perspective on that. The community coming into the system is a unique perspective than the system coming out into the community. They both have to work together, but they both need to be in play. And in addition to others, of course, because we have to look at all of the stakeholders. So my response to that is that community-based organizations have to be part of the equation and should be part of the plan going forward. I'm not sure, Elizabeth's here as well, if so maybe she may have a perspective.
I don't have a perspective, and I'm not really sure that I should be saying this, but I will share it. About a couple of months ago, when my husband was asked that question at one of the budget committee hearings, the next day from his response, I'm sorry, I know you're telling me to be careful, but he was asked to resign from a very well known organization, and it was based on the response from that question. And I don't know if I should be saying this, but I've always, since that day, been telling my husband that we should have done something, because there should be, we should be able to talk about these things. And so I believe that the question is very important, but I also believe that, you know, it's not always welcome as far as the response.
Yeah. We will not be intimidated anymore. Our community is not going to be intimidated anymore. The system is us. I just want to just spend a minute. So Elizabeth is Fernando's wife, and I'm his work wife, and we're both going to say things he probably doesn't want us to say. And that is, he just came from a meeting.
Judy, he's telling me not to say anything, but honestly, in my heart, that has not been okay.
This is why he's married to both of us. So we just came from a meeting with legislative staff who were talking about the system and the community, but they were only talking about people paid to be in the system, okay? People who are paid to support people in the system as the system. And while they are a critical part of making our lives better, of making people with disabilities' lives better, they are not the system. And guess what? The regional centers aren't the system either. The system is us. The system is people with developmental disabilities and the family members. And so we really have to take that back. We have lots of plans at DVU and the ICC to do that kind of stuff, and we will be in touch. We're getting close and short in time, so I'm going to ask Johnny. I can tell that Johnny has a question. Go ahead, Johnny.
Thank you, Judy. Yes, Johnny wrote something. Hold on for a second. Speak. Let's share. They're waiting.
Every voice matters regardless of how one communicates. Make your voice heard today.
That is it, man. That was great. You're getting lots of applause, Johnny. Thank you. Go ahead, Bob. Did you have a question, Bob Guthrie?
Get myself unmuted. I'm a person with a disability. Mainly delayed and all that. I mean, I came, and I'll tell you, I came out from the system. I was in an institution from 1953 to 59. And I know how the system works. I know how the system works because I'm a regional center client. I'm also a client with I serve on the board with the ARC of East County. I used to be on the big board for the ARC of with Anthony DeSalis and all them. And I know that, you know, like some of the things that they're trying to eliminate. They're eliminating the things from the shelter workshops. And if you eliminate that, where are the people going to go to get a job? Because I got trained through the ARC of San Diego. Then all of a sudden now they want to put it as a senior program. And the ones that are coming out from school, where are they going to go to get a job? They want to get the training to do a job. If they're
Bob,
gonna
that's super excellent questions, and we want to make sure. And the great thing about the American Rescue Plan funds, the spending plan, it actually has a ton of money to make sure that as we close the sheltered workshops where people are making sub-minimum wages, sometimes $1 or $2 an hour, that we move you into really great competitive integrated employment where you will be able to make minimum wage or above minimum wage, potentially 10 times or 15 times what you were making before, and being surrounded by your community. And so we are very supportive of ensuring, Bob, that people are not left behind. We want people to be treated with civil rights and human rights. And we promise, we want you to join us, Bob. We think you seem amazing, and we would love you to join us in our efforts.
I used to go up to Sacramento when ARC paid me to go up to Sacramento to speak to the legislators about the Letterman Act.
Yeah.
Because that's an important part because people like us. When I was at Porterville State Hospital from 1953 to 59, then I was at Fairview State Hospital from 59 to 61. Now I'm living down here. I live on my own. I'm retired from the job that I used to work, but I want to serve on some kind of board and be able to let people know that I'm, even if being retired and being 79 years old, I already had hip surgery. I'm done with that. I've been walking and staying active because I want to stay active. And then I got a person that's my caregiver. She has a son that has a disability, and she's my caregiver. Her name is Arlette. She just got married, but she wants to do something because with her son going into school and he doesn't speak, she doesn't have the. She's trying to get some kind of sensory thing for her son because her son doesn't communicate like I do, but she wants to do something. And she's a young mom that just got married. And she's really a good caregiver. And if I was able to, for you to be able to talk to her, she wants to be part of your community.
Wonderful. So Bob, we'd love to have her. We want her to be part of our community. We want you to be part of our community. You bring a lot of gifts to us. I unfortunately need to cut off right now only because we are always committed to offering Spanish interpretation at all of our meetings. And we're so lucky that Lorna could join us at a few hours notice, and she needs to go on to something that actually got planned before today. So just please, everybody, spend a few minutes when we get off the phone, and please, make your calls, go to your emails, do everything that you need to do to make this happen, because we are only powerful when we work together, and that is what's important. So I want to now thank Marty and Vivian and Jackie and Fernando and Aaron for joining us today. You guys were amazing. We are a good team. We're a great team. And we will keep you all informed. Make sure we'll stay for a minute. If I could ask Ed to just put our mailing list, how to join our mailing list in the chat. So if those of you are here for the very first time, please join our mailing list. Make sure you get invited to all of our events. We have them all the time. And so we want to thank you here. There it is right there in the chat. So please stay involved. Make those phone calls this afternoon. Tomorrow may be too late. So just pick up the phone and call people, or send emails if you don't want to talk on the phone. Bob, I got your email address. Thank you. We'd love to work with you. You seem so amazing. So thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will be in touch very soon. Thanks all. Bye-bye.